And I think we are live. So happy Wonder Wednesday, everyone. I hope that you're doing well wherever in the world you're joining us from today. Actually, if you're here watching us today, drop it in the chat. Let me know where you're joining us from, who's here. I would love to see and interact with our audience. If this is your first time watching us, we are Floxies community, an international community for women in UX UI design and Webflow development. And every Wednesday, we get here together, we gather around in what we like to call our Wonder Wednesdays. And these are webinars, free webinars for everyone to attend, and we usually invite influential speakers from either the design or the Webflow space to come and teach our community. We're about 1,500 women in our Discord server. So again, it's free to join. If you would like to join us, let me know, connect with me, and I'll send you a link. Actually, you're going to see it throughout the webinar as well. So hi, Miri from London. And also people, if you're watching from LinkedIn, I can read your comments, but I won't be able to reply via chat because the studio that I'm using doesn't allow for that. But I'll try to get on LinkedIn as soon as we start, so I can reply to you via my personal profile. Ciao Giada from Italy. Great to have so many people here watching us today. So without further ado, let me get into our metaverse. So once again, this is where we meet every week. This is our little virtual office. And so I'm just going to join the room and reach our speaker. So here we are. Hello, everyone. I was just launching the stream. We have so many people joining us already, like from LinkedIn, from YouTube. It's fantastic. And it's so great to see such a full room of Floxies here on Gather. So that's fantastic. And welcome, Kola, our speaker today.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I was, just saying, introducing the stream that obviously our talk today is going to be about the UX career paths, and so different ways that you can get into UX. And I have so many questions to ask you, Kola, about, just like UX in general. Is it something that people still pursue? Should they not? I can't wait to hear your presentation and your insights on this topic. So I would love to learn a little bit more about you first before we get started, about your background. And again, it's really, really nice to have you here with us. And I love this partnership that we have going with Bite Size UX. Um, I'm going to drop a link so everyone can check them out. It's absolutely fantastic. The way that they deliver their workshops and their hands-on sessions is pretty much what you're going to see today, but also it's very similar to what we do or we used to do with our Webflow workouts. So just like bite-sized lessons that really focus on having you practice your skills. So just like hands-on, which we both believe is the best way for you to acquire the skills and just like have fun as you practice design. So enough of me mumbling and rambling here. I'm just gonna take a seat and I'm gonna get you let you get started, Kola.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudia. Hi, everybody. I'm Cola. It's really wonderful to meet you. As was mentioned, I'm an educator at Bite Size UX, and we are similarly so thrilled to be partnering with Floxies. You have us all month. You had Joe last week. You'll have me again next week, and Joe at the end of the month. I'm also, in addition to an educator at Bite Size, I'm a lead UX design consultant. I run my own UX design consulting company. So to answer your initial question, yes, I do believe that people should still be looking into UX and that it's like more needed than ever now as the field has matured. And we'll talk all about that today. In terms of like my experience and my background, I've really worked everywhere: web, app, software, native, both, or like web app as well. And across enterprise level businesses, Fortune 500 companies, lifestyle brands, and then also smaller mom and pop or startups as well. And I was a longtime Bite Size member before I began teaching. And I particularly began teaching to give confidence to my fellow career transitioners. I started in graphic design, and I know what it's like to feel like you have a ton of experience that's really close to the career you want to transition to, but is difficult to change that language, to change how you're thinking about your past experience, to convince others that your experience is valuable and is needed in that new career. So this topic today is particularly around what are the transferable skills from other careers that you can bring with you, or if you're a new grad, since this field is now mature enough to have people graduating fresh into it. As a student, you have all these adjacent transferable skills as well that you can bring with you, and how to highlight those and talk about them and use them to determine your own path within UX. All right. So today we're talking about understanding the UX career path. And together today we're going to do a self-assessment of your skills. It's going to be very interactive. Definitely have the chat open and be ready to share. We're going to evaluate transferable skills, whether that's from a previous career or from your life as a student. And then we're going to do a little bit of self-exploration and design your specific path based on your goals and interests. So at Bite Size, we really like to do hands-on workshops and make sure that you are getting like kinetic learning as well as everything else. So definitely have the chat open and ready. We'll be sharing a couple links to files as we go through. This is true for Bite Size. Everything is recorded. I'm assuming it's also true for Floxies as well. Keep that chat open and active. We'll be sharing so much, and we want to be connected to each other throughout this experience. And I'd love to see you. But it's very cool being in this room with all of you, feeling like we're sharing the same physical space, even though some of us are on different continents. That's amazing. And make sure you're comfortable and hydrated. You have everything that you need through this time. And we're going to pop in the chat now the resource guide link for today. So you will have access to the recording, both from Floxies and also, actually, I don't know, Tom, if we're going to have this. Wonderful. Okay, great. We'll have it. But this resource guide will also contain your slides for today. So everything that I'm showing on the screen, you will have access to. You can follow along on your own pace, or you can bookmark it. It's web, so you can bookmark it and come back to it later. If you have to drop for any reason, you can come back. And then below the slides, there'll be a link for our collaborative FigJam board, which we'll get into a little bit later. And I'll share that link separately as well. And then we also have some additional resources. There's a simple leveling chart. I think it's really helpful when talking about the UX career path, particularly for my resume building class, to see what these skills are discussed as, how they're named, how they're organized from a hiring manager's perspective. And this leveling chart that's in this resource guide is just a really good, clean, simple example of a leveling chart that's helpful for getting that different perspective. And then we're going to talk a little bit about different areas of UX and different types of UX careers. One of those is being a design system designer. And for anyone who is interested in that, or who is like, I have no idea what that is, we have a link to Google's design system, which is a really beautiful example of a design system. And we can talk a little bit more if there are questions on that as well. So hopefully everybody got the resource guide. If you have an issue with the resource guide, please do let us know. We'll help you out. And as we're going through this, the tone I would like to set and the feeling that I would like you to have is to think abundance. There's a specialty for every set of skills and interests. There is a place for absolutely everyone in user experience design. We are all problem solvers. We all want to make things better. There's room for all of us, and that is best when we're working together. So it is, I don't want anyone thinking like, I have to have all of the skills. I have to be a unicorn in order to get a seat at the table. No, the table is big enough for all of us, and we are all needed at it. And to that end, variety is key, right? Designers and teams need a huge variety of cross-functional skills, which I've listed, the archetypal ones here. But also in this image, you see 4 different designers on a team that each have a different set of skills, different strengths and weaknesses. And as a whole, they make up a more comprehensive skill set. Even though each of them has different strengths and weaknesses, together they are able to attack each part of the design process with strength, and thusly also learn from each other, right? And so this is what I mean when I say think abundance and there's room for all of us, is that you can't and you don't need to be an expert in everything. We work on teams and we work together and we reach out to our collaborators for a reason, to be able to learn from others, to be able to get that support, to be able to share our expertise, right? And that's a good thing, and it strengthens our field, in fact. So to that end, some people may recognize the T-shaped design philosophy. It's an IDEO coined philosophy that's quite old now. But the idea being that as an individual designer, we want to have a light breadth of knowledge and then a few areas of deep expertise. So if you're a junior designer, you might only have one area of deep expertise. Let's say you come from a visual design, graphic design background, you would have deep expertise in layout, but you would have a light breadth of knowledge of UX because you've been coming to things like the Floxies. You've been coming to things like Bite Size. You've been checking it out and learning more, right? So light knowledge across a variety of areas and then deep expertise in one or two. And we see that all the way up, right? As you grow in your career, your area of depth changes. Your light breadth gets a little bit deeper just because you have more experience in lots of areas. But then, as a junior designer, you might be really deep in making prototypes. And then as you get up, that deep area changes to presentations and influences of stakeholders and et cetera. As you grow, your depth changes, which is fine and good. So what is leveling? I mentioned in the resource guide that we have a leveling document at the bottom there. You might not be familiar with the word leveling. It's borrowed from engineering. Levels define the expectations and chart a path for growth within a team or an organization, right? So at level 1, we have our junior designers up to some leveling documents will go to level 8 for C-suite, and they'll have that documented of what those expectations are even up to that level. And leveling will break out different skills that are required for design, especially for user experience design, because we have such a huge variety of skills that we need. Often they're broken out into 3 areas. The what hard skills, so that's like prototyping, actually getting the work done, doing the thing. The how, communication and collaboration skills, working with your team, working with your stakeholders, and influencing others, right? Evangelizing your work. And then the impact, what is your scope of work? So on the junior end, it would be like one screen. And then on the senior end, it might be a whole app or a whole industry. I often say, I think of like how the CEOs of TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, right? Think about how they talk about their field and what it is that they do. They're not talking about TikTok. They're talking about social media and like people as a whole, right? That's what their scope of work actually is. Whereas a junior designer is working on one dialogue box, right? So that's what we mean when we're talking about impact. For transferable skills, those 3 areas are hugely broad and touch on all sorts of transferable skills from other areas. So for graphic designers, visual artists, even photographers, illustrators, you'll be very proficient in those what hard skills. Just getting used to new software, new technologies, new design areas will make you inherently more proficient in those. And then as you continue working in UX and you're using these specific tools like Adobe XD or Figma, you'll be that much more ahead in them. Teachers, salespeople, anybody who is influencing others, bringing people, especially small children, into alignment, making sure that everyone understands and is ready to move forward together, right? That's a very difficult to learn and grow skill set and is hugely necessary in user experience design. So if you're coming from those sort of backgrounds, you're going to have a high proficiency in those how communication skills and influence skills. Particularly valuable for influencing stakeholders. If you have two stakeholders who are hugely divergent in their interests, being able to find the medium between them or do the politicking of who's the person who's actually going to move things forward, right? That's very hard work. Strategists, producers, also like mechanical engineers, right, have really high impact or scope and planning and execution skills, right? It's not just what I'm working on and the thing that's directly in front of me, but how that thing relates to the thing next to it. So like, how does my dialog box relate to the checkout flow? How does the checkout flow relate to the shopping experience as the whole? How does the shopping experience influence this field that we're selling in? How does it influence fashion, etc., right? And hopefully those are positive experiences, right? So like, to take a negative example, Shein not influencing fashion in a particularly good way, right? But that's a known way of influencing. They're pulling from all these different areas. They're very aware of their industry. They're just dragging it down, right? So thinking about that impact, scope, and planning, those kinds of backgrounds are going to already have a huge edge on those skills as well. And if you're a student, right, we're going to hop into a Fig Jam now. I'm going to share the link. But if you're a student, you also have like being able to give and participate in crit, being able to understand more deeply from your classes how active you are in class, right? All of these things, these are part of these transferable skills as well. So I've just dropped in the chat. Let me just make sure that that link, I'm going to do it one more time. Make sure that link is definitely good. I've dropped in a little Fig Jam in our chat here on Floxies. So we're going to do a 3-minute activity together. On Floxies or in the chat, if you could just give me a little thumbs up when you're able to get into that Fig Jam. Oh, thank you so much. Fantastic. All right, I'm seeing some thumbs. Beautiful. And I'm seeing some numbers. Fantastic. So go ahead and just for those on the video, well, here, let me see if I can change the tab so that we're all seeing the same thing. Okay. So go ahead and claim one of these little spider charts for yourself. You can just put your name on it. There should be plenty. If for some reason there are not, we can copy some blank ones and make some more. No worries. If you don't want people to know your full name, that's fine. You can put a nickname, whatever works for you. And what we're going to do is just to do a quick Fig Jam intro. There is this wonderful little stamp tool right here. I'll just claim a random one here. I'll claim this one here and I'll use it as my demo. All right. So there's this wonderful little stamp tool here. Choose your favorite icon. I like a star. And what we're going to do is we're just going to self-assess our skill set, our existing skill set, exactly as we are today, right now, right? So there are tons of areas in user experience design. As you're doing the activity, I'll start a timer, and as you're doing the activity, I'll talk a little bit about each of these areas. I just want to make sure that we have enough time as we're going through. If there are any questions about each of these areas, please do let me know either in chat or however you can get out there. Okay. Awesome. So if there are questions about these particular areas, I'll run through them lightly. But just do a self rate. So like center is 0. So I'll say like I'm not the strongest UX writer. I'll give myself a 2. And then outside is 5, right? So I'm pretty good at qualitative research. I'm very good at quantitative analysis. Here I am presenting to you. I think I can call myself a pro with presentation skills, etc. Right? So you'll go through and you'll give yourself a little self rating of what your skills are. And then if you want at the end to make it super visible, like the example that I had on the screen, you can just grab a highlighter and kind of fill in what your skills are so that you can see, like on this little radial chart, spider graph, whatever you want to call it, how it's rating. All right, so I'm going to put on a 3-minute timer, and I'll put on a little music while we're doing our self-rating skills, and we'll get started. Is everybody ready? Okay, awesome. Here we go. 3 minutes on the clock. Interesting, it doesn't share my timer, so I'll just call it out a little bit throughout our time so you know how it's going. Yeah, absolutely. So as we're going through, what are these key skills that we expect of user experience designers? Um, we'll start at the top, qualitative research. So qualitative research is going to be your user testing, your one-on-one interviews, your stakeholder interviews, um, etc. We have 2 minutes left on the clock, so everybody knows. Quantitative analysis, that's going to be your metrics, right? Qualitative analysis could be surveys. Surveys could also be quantitative analysis, depending on how they're designed. It's going to be all of your like Google Analytics, that kind of stuff that you see high conversion rates or low conversion rates or drop-off rates. That's your quantitative analysis. Presentation skills, like what I'm doing today, right? Teaching UX isn't exactly doing UX, but it's very important to be able to talk about these skills eloquently, clearly, and get people excited about them and their need in our work, right? Product strategy. So that's going to be more of that. It's related to systems thinking of like, how is this product going to evolve and go forward? What's the long-term idea on this? We have 1 minute left for your self-assessment. Interaction design. How does it feel when you click a button? Are there any animations? How does it feel as you're moving through pages? Visual design, brand, layout, that kind of thing. Prototyping would be very specific to creating the screens. And prototyping all by itself is like an entire career because so right now, until AI changes it, you need to make each individual state and each individual screen by hand. Information architecture, again, is like, how does the structure of what this thing does, this feature does, interact with the structure of what the app does or the website does as a whole? What kind of tools on the back end are needed to make it happen? You have 10 seconds left. Systems thinking, that impact, right? That how far we, or how does this thing that I'm working on impact other experiences that the user will have all the way through to the industry as a whole. And then UX writing, and hopefully we're mostly familiar with, is making sure that the copy is helping you and clear and leading your users in a positive way through the work, and is absolutely its own skill set. All right, and that is our time. How did we all do? We feel good about, oh yeah. I love it. Like, yeah, everybody is like very unique in their designs. This is awesome. I'm so curious about this half and half design that we have going on here. Of course, now I can't log into it. Annalie and Celie, yeah, I want to know what your symbols mean. Very cool. Awesome. Yay. Okay, so here, let me change back to the other tab. Do. Excellent. So now that we know what our skills are, where we are at currently, should we only work on weak skills? Should we work on strengths and develop them further, right, to that T-shape idea? And the answer is, it depends on your specific goals and what it is that you're trying to do. So if you are trying to get into UX writing for the first time and you have zero background in it, you're probably not going to have strong skills in that area right now. You will need to develop them. So you will be doing weakness-based development. Historically, many corporate offices and structures have encouraged weakness-based development to a fault. The idea that all people need to be strong in all things, fortunately, is now mostly being recognized as an old idea that doesn't work because often our weaknesses also align with our disinterests, right? When we're interested in something, it's much easier to develop it further and grow in it. And that's fantastic and that's good and generally leads to like working in a more fulfilled way, right? So if you have an interest where your strengths are already strong, there's no reason to ignore that either. Like perhaps you do need to develop some weaknesses in order to round out your skill set. But also, you know, as a historically visual designer, I know that field is always changing and is always affecting UX. I just read something the other day about, you know, millennial pink is out, Gen Z purple is in, and it was all UX examples, web examples, and how this new color is being used, right? That's hugely relevant and totally new, right? And a skill that I have to continue developing, continue changing. So it depends on where you want to go. So where will your existing skills shine, or where might you need to develop further, right? So if you have high craft skills, my graphic designers, then existing skills will shine really well, and it'll be easy for you to pick up adjacent skills. Would be roles like UI designer, right? Focused very specifically on the screen design and interactions and making those like 100%. Design systems. In our resource guide, we have a link to Google's design system. This is a relatively new field, but is maturing rapidly. Many large companies now will have design system teams that are entirely dedicated to just maintaining, building, changing, growing the design system. So that would be the all of the interaction language, button colors, fonts, etc., brand, but specifically for the product, right? And then production designer. Production designers generally are exclusively focused on taking a kind of hero flow and then making all of the potential states, interactions, various edge cases, right? All of those screens. And ultimately for like particularly large products for developer handoff, you will need like a master file of all of these different ways that states look and occur and interact and develop in order for developers to know how to program it, right? So a production designer's job is to like make that incredibly clear and easy for others to understand. For our high communication skill folks, product owner or manager, anyone who's like coordinating groups of people, evangelizing next steps, or places that need work. Lead or management roles, so being more of a team manager, and then also new business development, right? What area does our product need to grow in? Or if we're in a consulting business, what area, what industries do we need to grow in for ourselves, or how can we get new clients in these particular areas, right? And then for our high impact folks who are thinking like, big scope, right? Able to really look at how this tiny piece fits into the whole world puzzle. UXR, doing research work in the very early stages of the app or product or website, having that high impact, high scope area is really valuable in UXR, being able to look at the early stages and see how it could potentially grow and change over time. Strategy or visioning work requires really high impact, high scope understanding. And road mapping, right? Developing the roadmap for your team, for product as a whole, whether it's quarter to quarter or year over year. You need to be able to look into the future and how this will continue to grow. So now we're going to hop back into our Fig Jam, and we're going to look at where we might match up with like expected skills in particular areas. So I'm going to share the Fig Jam again. And right over here behind this lovely white square, if I can grab it, we have some existing skill sets. For example, a junior designer or a UXR designer, a senior UX designer, or a product manager, right? So a junior designer probably doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the research and analysis and strategy areas, but might have a lot of experience in prototyping, visual design, interaction. Those are pretty easy to self-teach, right? Or if they're coming from an engineering background, maybe they'll have more experience in the systems thinking and information architecture areas, right? So it's really just a couple deep and then a lot of light, right? A UXR designer probably has a lot more experience in those research areas and less experience in those hard skill areas, right? A senior UX designer has been developing a variety of deep skills for a while, right? So has a good handle on research, should have an excellent handle on presentation and strategy, maybe isn't touching the files so much anymore. So that experience has actually gotten lighter, but is working more in systems thinking perhaps. And then a product manager doesn't touch the files really ever, but really needs to understand the research and have that visioning and systems thinking areas on lock as well. So once again, I'm going to start a timer. I'm going to give us another 3 minutes. I'll put on music and I'll call it out. Take a look at your skills and see where they match up. Where are you already in a similar vein for each of these roles? And where might you need to develop a little bit further to round yourself out a little bit? Is everybody ready? Awesome. I'll leave these up on the screen share so that if you want to do like a little side by side, you can have that. This is another 3 minutes. So I had already started the timer. We have about 2 minutes and 30 seconds still to go.
I think I didn't get it. What do we have to do?
Yeah, so you're taking the skills that you rated yourself as for like where you are today, and just comparing them to these 4 examples of different kinds of designers, just to see where it is that you might want to develop further or where you already have strengths. Have about 1 minute and 30 seconds left. It's fantastic. Yeah. It really makes you feel like you're all working together at the same time. And then as you're doing this comparison in this last minute that we have now, just go ahead and write down 3 skills that you want to improve on, or we'll do one because you only have 1 minute. One area in which you can improve, right? What is one skill that you're like, oh, this would really help me round out to where I want to be? And you can just write it next to your, just do a little text and write it next to your name. Got about 30 seconds left. So like my one skill that I would really want to improve would be information architecture. Despite being married to a back-end engineer, I really don't have a great sense of like what really is feasible until I've conceived of the idea and taken it to my engineering team. So that would be my one skill that I need to do more work on. I can be better at. All right, and that is our time. How did we do? Are we feeling a little bit more confident in our skills after doing this activity? Feeling like we already have some UX skills in our tool belt? It could, yes, absolutely. Or conversely, feeling like, I got a lot of work to do. Hopefully you're feeling more confident. That's the goal, is to make you feel more confident. Like, oh yeah, I have already done this a little bit. I have a start going at least. Or maybe I am much higher level than I thought I was. I was thinking I was a junior designer, but here I am matching up with a lot of these presentation, impact, scope level skills that seem like they're a better match for a senior level position, right? And to that end, so looking at the growth path of a designer, right, you can definitely start anywhere. If you were already senior in your previous life, you can be a senior designer. You don't have to start over again from the beginning. And that's the whole point of bringing these transferable skills with us and being aware of them, right? If you have a lot of those strategy, visioning, scope, impact skills, if that's really a part of how you work, you're going to be incredibly frustrated in the small box that a junior designer is working in because they're still developing those skills, right? That's not a good fit for you. So it depends on what it is that you want to do and where your skills already match up. So if you want to be a team lead, then you want to be working on those communication and presentation skills. If you want to influence the direction of products, like from the very early stages, then UXR, that data analysis and research skills, those are the skills that you really, really need to be able to strongly influence products at that early stage and be able to really change the direction of how a product is going to grow. And then if you want to make beautiful design systems or prototype, if you're really nerdy about, I would say if you are a truly detail-oriented person, like one of those people that is actually detail-oriented, UI, visual design, Figma wizard, design system work, that is going to be very fulfilling for you if that's something that you enjoy and is equally in demand. So depending on where you have these various skills, there is absolutely a job for you. So what kind of jobs need what? And I want to talk about consultant and freelance positions here equally, because I do believe that they are just as valid. If it pays you, it's real work. They're valid career paths, right? Not just salary being looked at as a career. As a consultant, I'm particularly passionate about that. So for salary team positions, we'll start there. it's generally what people think that they want to start with. So for a junior level, you often need light general skills, a little bit of everything, and generally you will need high visual design skills. Junior designers often get designated to work on production design, on multiplying out all of those screens, creating those documents. For mid-level design, high levels of autonomy and understanding other parts of the product lifestyle cycle in addition to those junior design skills are going to be necessary, right? So where a junior designer would be very tasked, okay, go do this, okay, go do that. When you're done, show it to me, we'll talk about it, right? A mid-level designer needs to be autonomous, to be able to say, okay, I need to do this thing next, and then go ahead and get started on it. And then at a senior level, you want that high level of influence. So where mid-level was autonomous, senior level is now not only autonomous, but delegating to others, evangelizing to others, and specifically to other parts of the product lifecycle, right? So engineering, product management, marketing, right? We need to be able to coordinate with those areas to make sure that we're all working towards the same goals. And high level of communication across not only their own field and other departments, but also across levels, being able to speak comfortably to stakeholders in the C-suite, as well as junior designers, right? So really a much broader sense of all of those skills. Generally not touching the file a whole lot, so probably not so much on the visual design skills other than taste and critique and being able to influence. For consultant and freelance positions, specialized areas are often given on contract basis because they happen fairly infrequently, right? So the core design team is working on a new feature and they're doing all of their research and they're going along. Maybe they've hired a UXR consultant to help them with their research and to really dive deep into their research. And then when they're getting towards launch, they would hire a production designer to make that beautiful big handoff file that documents absolutely every single state and every single screen. As they're developing, they might have a consultant UX writer come in to review the content. It's possible that UX writing is on staff, and they're certainly at bigger companies. Generally, the larger the enterprise, the more specific a role potential is, but also available on contract and is very much needed on a contract basis as well. Contract and freelance positions are fantastic for growing skills very quickly. So if you want to grow a very adjacent skill, let's say you are an excellent prototyper, but you want to grow an adjacent skill in interaction, freelance, like, really has specialized interaction. Freelance is a great opportunity to do that because it's often closely managed and highly specific in terms of what the work is. And so you are very, very focused. And then there's also the potential on the flip side, the potential to own the entire process if you're working for like a startup or a smaller business. If you want to be doing end-to-end product design, that's also available in freelance, and that's all self-directed, right? Where that's hard is you have to be going to seek your own clients and set up those relationships. And with that, we're going to get into our key takeaways and next steps. We're going to start wrapping up with our time here, which has been wonderful. Thank you all for joining me. I want to know for sure that you're walking away today with the knowledge that your existing skills are valuable, and what you bring to UX design is needed in the field. Teams need designers that have multiple skills, like as in multiple designers with different skills, and having light knowledge across multiple different areas, right? And then highly specialized designers might enjoy contract work. I started as a consultant fresh out of school, and at that time there was a lot of skepticism around contract work. You know, the gig economy was new then. Skepticism around contract work being valid work, and I say screw that. Contract work is absolutely valid work. If it pays you, it's work, and you are growing your skills and growing your connections and developing often more than you would be in a salaried position. It's challenging in a different sort of way. And I would love to know what your biggest takeaway is from today as I run through next steps. I'm going to just show you, drop it in the chat or shout it out. I'm going to show you this leveling document that is linked in our resource guide today. So definitely look at this on your own time, take a look at it. But it's a very simple junior, mid-level, senior UX designer leveling document. Not only is it linked in our resource guide, but the web address is on the slides, which you have access to as well. And it really, they use slightly different language in this leveling document. They talk about skills and impact, ownership, and collaboration versus like hard skills, influence or scope and communication, right? But the way in which they talk about these skills and the very specific verbiage used, I think is helpful to have to hear that hiring manager's way of talking about things. In terms of expectations of your role, but then also so that you can go and learn, like you can Google this, right? Learn these skills with these words and understand what these words mean. I think that in tech especially, there's this huge perceived language barrier, right? There are all these terms like cross-functional teams and agile, and that people are like, I don't know what that means. Cross-functional teams just means people of different roles working together on one project. It's not like it seems like it's this big opaque different experience, but it's not. And so I think having these terms available to you is really valuable.
Agile is definitely one of them.
Yeah. Yes, right. KPIs is on that document as well, right? Which comes up a lot. I am
all the acronyms.
Yeah. I'm so thrilled to see that people saw how closely their skills were already like aligned with UX positions. That is
Yeah, I was just reading some of the key takeaways people got. And first off, Kola, thank you so much. It doesn't happen that often here that we get to hear from, such a senior, influential person in the field. And so it's so great to have you here. For you to dedicate your time to our community is absolutely, priceless. So thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing just your knowledge and your experience with us. This is really, really valuable. So thank you for that. And yeah, just like what you were saying, it's great to see the feedback from the girls, like Kat saying, didn't realize how closely my skills were aligned with junior UX design positions. Is that a good or a bad thing, Kat? Carice, I always thought that starting in UX would mean I'd have to relearn an entirely new role, but I didn't realize my current skills would be transferable. That's super huge, just like any experience, any professional experience, or even life maybe experience. I don't know if you agree with me, Kola, but anything you've learned throughout this journey that we call life could be transferable into a new profession. You all know my background. I used to be a teaching assistant at a primary school, and lots of those skills I was able to transfer into now community management. So anything can be transferred. It's just like how you reutilize that skill and transform it, shape it into a new profession. Nicoletta says we like to make up fancy terms. Yeah. Thank you very much for the presentation. I know which skills I have to improve now. That's brilliant. Actionable takeaways.
Awesome. Well, and that's what I have today. Claudia, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Does anybody have any questions that they
I
want to
think we
ask?
can open up. Let me see how much time we have. About 7 minutes left. So I would love to open up the floor for any questions that we might have from the community. So obviously, as per usual, we're going to prioritize our Floxies here in our gathers. So if you do have a question, feel free to use the emoji. You can see there's a white emoji right at the bottom. There's a hand just like that. You can raise your hand and I'll call out your name so you can come on mic and just like ask your questions, or feel free to drop them in the chat if you find that easier. And equally for people watching on LinkedIn, by the way, thank you, Paris, for letting me know about my mic not working there. I didn't say anything clever, so you didn't miss out on anything much. You had to listen. The most important thing is that you could hear Cola, and that worked. So that's great. But thank you for letting me know. If you do have questions, drop them in the chat and I'll read them out for you. But yeah, I would love to hear people here at Floxies. Do you have any questions? Now is your time to make the most, of our speaker, expert speaker that we have here. And I know that I did have some questions in the forum as well. So I'm just gonna look out for any hands being raised, and I'm just gonna pull up the forum as well with some questions there. All right. So as I can't see, well, we do have a question here. Let's see, Kat.
Hey, so I've been trying to formulate this as a question in my head, and I'm not exactly sure how to formulate it as a question. So I'm just going to say what I'm trying to get at, and if you have nothing to respond to for that, that's totally fine. But I've been like actively applying to a bunch of like junior UX design roles, and the only ones that I've like heard back from, gotten interviews, gotten offers, are with startups. And what I'm worried about is not having any opportunities for mentorship within that role. So I don't know what my question is, just wondering if you have any insights surrounding that.
Totally. So I'm not surprised that the only things that you've heard back from are startups. The market is super weird right now, right? These huge Goliath companies are not doing well and are really trimming down their teams, whereas now is the time for lots of people to go found a company. And so startups are hiring like crazy. It's something we saw in the last Great Recession as well. So it's a known phenomenon. Tech bubble, STEAM, it's just like a 10-year thing that happens. As far as mentorship goes and your desire for mentorship, it is totally understandable to be anxious that a startup might not have that, because it is a lot of like all hands on deck all the time, and will a senior person make the time for you? I can see why you would have that anxiety. Anecdotally, personally, I have found startups to be the best place for mentorship. They're really tend to be very cognizant of their company culture and how it is that they're growing and developing mentorship. The startups I've worked at, the startups that my husband has worked at, the startups that my former coworkers have worked at, all have had really strong mentorship programs. It's something that you can ask about in the interviews, and if they don't have one, you might be able to get involved in starting one, which is a fantastic point on your resume for where it is that you go next. But then additionally, I would encourage you to look at mentorship outside of work as well. And that would be true even if you had a mentorship program at work. Communities like Floxies, communities like Bite Size, meetups, depending on where you are physically in the world. There are lots of UX meetups that are in person and develop mentorship. I have 2 different mentors that have nothing to do with now I work for myself, right? So they're not part of my company, right? But there are mentors outside of my work that I work with really regularly and check in on really regularly and ask for help all the time. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
And you got some approval from the audience, Kat. They were saying such a good question. So thank you for asking that. We do have a question in the chat from Chris. She says, "Hi, Kola. How do you objectively rate your skill level?"
Chris, are you asking for like what my own numbers are of myself, or are you asking like how does one go about being objective about oneself?
The
Got
second
it.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, Okay. So how does one go? Okay, this is really hard. This is really hard work. And if you join us next week for resume writing, we're going to talk more about this because it's hard to talk about yourself, especially in a
Spoiler.
Western, in a Western culture where humility is like the gold standard, and we don't want to share our accomplishments. It can be really, really tough. For the in UX, right, when we're asking users to give us objective ratings on something that they have done, we ask them to look at the past, right? So if I'm asking you for a workout app, how many times a week you run, you're like, oh, I don't know, like I want to be running 5 times a week, but last week I only went 3 times a week, right? That's very vague and ambiguous. So we ask about the past. In the past month, how many days a week did you run on average, right? Looking at your own skills, take that same approach. In your last role, what of these skills did you use and how? In your last community effort that you were a part of, what of these skills did you use and how? Also, for some of them, they are objectively rateable, right? Like you can look up what are the, like LinkedIn, right? Especially those of us joining us on LinkedIn have sometimes not greatly designed skill exams, right, for different areas. So you can look externally for those ratings as well. But in terms of self-assessment and getting used to self-assessment and looking at your own skills and where you're at and where you want to grow and developing that skill, which is a skill, self-assessment, look at the past. And treat yourself like a user interview. What did I do in the past? What can I measure from my past?
Brilliant.
Hopefully that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, hope he does. Nicholas, are you waving goodbye, or do you have a question?
No question, but yeah, that question before was really good because I thought maybe I'm boasting a bit because I realized that I'm quite good at everything, most of it. But then when you said we have to look at the things that we should improve, then when I marked them, it was really clear that I need to work on few areas to become a mid or senior. So yeah, it was quite useful. I don't have any questions at the moment, but if I do, I will reach out.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Nicoletta. And that's the key. Like when you self-assess and you're like, okay, I think, that's not too bad. And then I guess it would be really bad if you didn't have any next steps to take from that.
That
We
would be a red
often,
flag.
exactly, we often say in the community, be a river, keep flowing, never stay stale. And, that's when you keep growing and getting better. We have something from YouTube. So from Tonya, I've yet to hear back from positions and I have previous junior UX experience. I'm wondering if my portfolio needs a complete rehaul. At the same time, any tips on not getting discouraged?
So yeah, on the job search, when you're setting goals for yourself in your job search, so like let's say that you want to do a certain number of outreach or a certain number of applications for each week, et cetera, cold outreach versus reaching out to your like network, et cetera. Also make sure that you set some to-do list items for yourself around self-care and making sure that you stay excited about your field. Next week, when we talk about resume writing, I'll talk about this a little bit more, and I really have you start with thinking about yourself and what it is that you want out of a job and out of your career rather than how you fit into someone else's box of what a role is, and coming back to that of like, what do I want? What are my goals? Where am I trying to go? Can be really re-energizing of like, oh, right, yes, I have a vision of like something that I want to do and I'm excited about. I also like to have a little like self project on the side. There are a lot of them now, but there are some random prompt, like design prompt generators that you can just do like one screen on, or just do some crazy Yates on. And they just remind me that like I am good at this and I know what I'm doing, especially when I'm not getting any active feedback on my work. And then also stuff like this, right? Teaching on Floxies, teaching on Bite Size reminds me that I know what I'm talking about and what I'm doing, and like I get to talk to all of you and see how you're growing and what your questions are, and that's really like when I talk about this time and what I do, the adjectives I use are like energizing and encouraging, right? They're like really good adjectives. We like those adjectives, right? So I would encourage you also to find a networking space where you can share your expertise, not where you're trying to get stuff from other people, but where can you go to share your expertise? So for example, I don't really go into UX design networking communities anymore. I'm mostly in startup networking communities, sharing and evangelizing user experience design and UXR to people who don't really know anything about it. I'm sharing my expertise rather than trying to convince a senior designer to like me.
They're always very critical, those designers, aren't they?
Yeah.
No, those are great tips. Those are, yeah, I think Shivi had a question, but just Sonia, if you're not part of Floxies yet, I'm going to share a link for you to check it out. I mean, I'm sure anyone here in this room can tell you how much we really push to get everyone on board in terms of like feeling good and confident about what they do. So yeah, it's one of my mission is to make sure that everyone in our community feels comfortable within their skin and what they're trying to do in this world. So I'm always very supportive. So if you're looking, just like what Kola was saying, for a supportive network of people, it's free to join. Check it out. We'd love to have you. And Shivi, I think she had a question then.
Yeah, do you want to say it on the mic, Shivi?
Yeah, hello. Sorry. I also posted about, but I just wanted to ask about the other high impact, high influence positions you highlighted, and how you approach working towards them when they are not ambiguous and you're responsible for like shaping things and having a bigger picture and developing strategy. How do you move towards building your brain towards that way?
Yeah, so I mean, number one would be to talk to lots of other people who do it, kind of like have that always learning lens turned on. It would also be helpful to narrow down what area of those skill sets you want to be learning in or growing in, right? So if you want to be growing in UXR specifically, then that will be like one small chunk that you can, UXR is not a small chunk, but it will be a more targeted area that you can focus and learn in, versus strategy or visioning or road mapping is a small chunk, right? That is like one hard skill that you can research and learn and develop, and then take it one skill at a time from there, right? So if you're interested in the research phase in UXR, then break that down into one skill at a time. If you're interested in the like strategy, visioning, road mapping stuff, again, break that down one skill at a time. Going back to that networking thing, so on the opposite end of the spectrum, you would want to be networking with people who you can get more information from, right? People who are experts in that, so that you can learn from them and hear their stories, which is I'm not going to say easier, it's different. People love to talk about what they're experts in, right? So like if you can find those people, then they'll talk your ears off forever. And also to practice it, right? So like Bite Size, we have lots of work. We have UXR specific workshops. I also teach my beginner classes really about strategy and visioning. We have active hands-on workshops at Bite Size. I'm sure lots of other Floxies speakers and community members also have active hands-on workshops. I'm a huge proponent of kinetic learning.
Mm.
And then also those projects, as you're working through them, you'll be able to add them to your portfolio so that you have the receipts, right? You can say, not only do I understand this concept, but here I have this wonderful portfolio project demonstrating my knowledge and understanding.
Thank you. That's really useful.
Brilliant. And I just shared the link for anyone who would like to check out Bite Size. Again, cannot recommend it any higher than what we do every week. So go and check it out. It's amazing. And Kola, I'm going to free you up. Thank you so much for your time today. Just like what you were saying, next week we're going to have resume writing for UX job seekers. So gather all the knowledge that you had today, marinate it for a week, and then next week we'll see practical usage on how we can put that into writing with our expert Kola. So thank you so much for being here with us again today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much for joining us.
All right,
Thanks
bye
for having
everyone. See you soon, and feel free to stay, Kola, if you want to wander around.
Oh yeah, I haven't really seen the space yet.
I'll give you a little tour. And to all the people here on the stream, I will see you next Wednesday. Take care. Bye bye.